Amara was a young woman from a small quiet village in Nigeria. She lived a simple life, helping her mother with chores and spending time with her boyfriend, Chijoke. Life has always been peaceful, but things changed drastically when Chijoke's best friend, Obina, passed away. Obina's death was sudden and the entire village mourned. He was a well-loved young man with a bright future, and his untimely death left a dark cloud over everyone. Chijoke was devastated. On the day of the burial, he cried harder than anyone else, even more than Obina's family. Amara had never seen him like this before, but of course, it was no news that he loved Obina. His tears flowed like the river Niger, and he rolled himself on the floor bitterly. The black jalabia he was wearing was not as white as snow from the dust on the floor. As the funeral continued, Chijoke didn't listen to anything said by the pastor. Obina's family approached Amara and told her that she should console her boyfriend. Amara knelt close to him and tried her best. The truth was that she was confused. She had never consoled anyone who was mourning before. After the procession, he sat by Obina's grave. Long after the others had left, his body shaking with uncontrollable sobs. Amara, unsure of what to do, went to comfort him. "I'm here for you," she whispered, wrapping her hands around him. But her words seemed to have no effect. He cried even harder, as if he knew something she didn't. The longer they sat by the grave, the more uneasy Amara felt. "Let's have a walk," she suggested, hoping to distract him. They walked through the rows of gravestones, silent and heavy with emotions. As they wandered, Amara tried to cheer him up. She whispered sweet words, reminding him that she was there for him, telling him that he didn't have to face his loss alone. She even said, "From today onward, you can take me as your best friend. I know you have lost someone close, but I'll be here for you." Chijoke looked at her with wet eyes, and for a moment there was a flicker of something that was not grief, but something darker. He kissed her. It was sudden, and Amara, caught up in the moment and the raw emotion, kissed him back. The grief, the strange atmosphere, the stillness of the cemetery, it all began to sway together and push them into each other's arms. What happened next felt like a blow, almost as if they were being driven by a force outside of themselves. They ended up doing the unthinkable on top of a grave, desecrating the final resting place of a man named Eze, who had died just 49 years old. When it was over, Amara felt a strange cold seep into her bones. She looked down at the grave beneath them and felt a wave of guilt and fear wash over her. So young, she thought to herself, staring at the name carved into the stone. Eze has been 49 when he died, and now his grave has been dishonored by something she couldn't even understand. As they left the cemetery, silence hung between her and Chijoke. They didn't speak about what had just happened, and Amara could feel a distance growing between them. She didn't know what to say, and it seems like Chijoke didn't either. They were both ashamed, and that shame only grew heavier with each step they took away from the grave. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the events of the day: the burial, Chijoke's uncontrollable sobbing, the strange impulse that had led them to do what they had done on top of the grave. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she felt as though something was watching her. There was a chill in the air, and it made her shiver. But it wasn't just the cold, it was fear. Over the next few days, things got worse. Amara began having strange dreams and nightmares, where she was chased by shadowy figures, where cold hands reached out from the darkness to grab her. The faces of the dead appeared in her dreams, their eyes hollow, their mouths twisted in silent screams. Each night, the dream grew more vivid, more terrifying. She woke up in cold sweats, her heart racing, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. She called Chijoke, desperate to find some comfort in him, but he has grown distant. When she asked if he had been having the same dream, he simply said no and quickly changed the subject. It was as though he didn't want to talk to her, as though he didn't want to be reminded of what had happened. Days turned into weeks, and Amara's dreams became even more intense. She saw ghosts not just in her sleep, but in her waking hour as well. She would be sitting at home, and out of the corner of her eye, she would see a figure standing in the corner, watching her. One night, she woke up to find her duvet pulled off her body and her clothes disheveled, as if someone or something had tried to undress her while she slept. She screamed, feeling a cold presence in the room, but when she turned on the light, there was no one there. Her body was trembling, covered in sweat, and for the first time, she truly felt that she was being haunted by something far beyond her understanding. Amara tried everything to make the nightmare stop. She went to church, prayed, and even visited local healers, but nothing worked. The dream continued, and the spirit grew more restless. She didn't know how much more she could take. Her head began to suffer. She couldn't sleep, and when she did, it was only to be thrown into a world of terror. She became pale and thin, her eyes constantly red and swollen from lack of rest. One day, desperate and on the verge of collapse, Amara met an old woman at the village market. The woman, with deep-set eyes and a knowing look, stopped her in her track. "I know what troubles you, my child," she said softly, her voice raspy but filled with certainty. Amara stared at her in shock. How could she know? "You've been seeing spirits, haven't you?" The woman continued. "In your dreams, in your waking moments, you've been haunted ever since that day in the cemetery." Amara's heart pounded in her chest. She hadn't told anyone about the cemetery, about what had happened that day with Chijoke. "How do you know?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The old woman smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "I know because I've seen it before. You see, your ex-boyfriend Chijoke made an exchange with you that day. By sleeping with you in the cemetery, he transferred something dark to you. His best friend Obina and he had a pact, a covenant. They swore that if one of them died, the other would follow unless a deed like the one you performed was done before the burial was complete. When you did what you did, you took Obina's place. That is why Chijoke broke up with you, saying you were acting crazy. He knew what he had done. He knew the curse had passed to you." Amara's mind whirled. She could barely comprehend what the old woman was saying. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. The old woman's eyes were filled with a strange kind of pity. "Chijoke and Obina made a pact. When Obina died, Chijoke was supposed to die as well. But by doing the act in the cemetery with you, he transferred the curse onto you. Now you are the one who carries the burden. That is why the spirits are haunting you. That's why you can't sleep. You took his place." Amara felt sick to her stomach. Her leg felt weak and she sank into a nearby bench, her head spinning. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How can I stop this?" The old woman leaned in close, her voice low and serious. There's only one way to undo the curse. You must deceive Chijoke. You must bring him back to the cemetery and make him do the deed with you again. Only then will the curse return to him and you will be free, and you will not die in his place. Amara was horrified by the old woman's words. She couldn't imagine going back to the cemetery, couldn't imagine tricking Chijoke into repeating that terrible act. But she knew the old woman was right. If she didn't do something soon, she would die. The spirit would claim her life. With a heavy heart, Amara began to plan. She had to find a way to get Chijoke back to the cemetery. It won't be easy. He had distanced himself from her completely since the incident, but she had no choice. Her life depended on it. Over the next few days, Amara reached out to Chijoke, pretending to want to patch things on between them. At first, he was cold and distant, but slowly he began to warm up to her. She played on his emotions, reminding him of the good times they had shared, telling him she missed him. It was hard knowing what she was planning, but she had no other option. Finally, after weeks of careful manipulation and careful planning, Amara finally convinced Chijoke to meet her. She had to play her cards carefully, knowing what was at stake. Her life depended on it. She suggested they take a walk, just like they had before everything spiraled out of control. Chijoke seemed hesitant at first. After all, he had kept his distance from her ever since that day in the cemetery. "I don't know, Amara. Maybe we shouldn't," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. Amara's heart raced, but she kept her composure. "Please, Chijoke, I've missed you. Let's just walk and talk like we used to. Nothing more." She softened her voice, hoping to tap into his emotions. Reluctantly, Chijoke agreed. "Fine, just to walk." The walk started awkwardly. Neither of them spoke much, and the tension between them was thick. But Amara knew she had to push through. She made him comfortable enough to trust her again. She led him along a familiar path, casually making their way towards the cemetery without raising his suspicion. They reminisced about their old times together, laughing awkwardly as they shared memories. Little by little, she could feel him relaxing as they neared the cemetery gate. Amara stopped. "Do you remember this place?" she asked softly. Chijoke tensed immediately. His eye flickered with unease and he took a step back. "Why did you bring me here?" he asked, his voice shaking. Amara forced a smile, trying to keep her tone light. "It's just a place, Chijoke. We were here before. I thought maybe if we come back, we will finally talk about what happened. Clear the air." Chijoke's face tightened. He was visibly uncomfortable, but he didn't leave. "I don't know, Amara," he muttered. "That night, it wasn't right. I don't want to go through that again." Amara's heart was pounding, but she knew she couldn't back down now. "Please, Chijoke," she said, taking his hand gently. "We need to make peace with what happened. Let's just cool for a little while." Against his better judgment, Chijoke followed her through the cemetery gate. As they walked deeper into the graveyard, Amara could feel the familiar shake creeping back into her bones. The gravestone, the cold wind, the silence, it was all too much like the first time. They reached the grave where it had all begun, the old stone of Az, the man whose grave they had desecrated. Amara felt a shudder ran down her spine and she stared at the weathered name, the age of death, still etched deeply into the stone. 49 years old, she swallowed hard and turned to Chijoke. "Let's sit down," she said softly, gesturing towards the grave. Chijoke's eyes darted around nervously. "I don't think we should be here, Amara. We should leave." Amara tightened her grip on his hand, pulling him down to sit next to her. "Chijoke, I need to tell you something." He looks at her, confused and worried. What is it, Amara? Amara took a deep breath. I had been having dreams. Terrible dreams. Spirits are haunting me. Chijoke. Ever since that night, I've been seeing ghosts and hearing voices. I can't sleep. It's like I've been punished for what we did here. Chijoke's face went pale. He stared at her, his eyes wide in fear. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered, but his voice wavered. Amara leaned closer, her voice trembling. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Chijoke. You know what will happen. That's why you've been avoiding me, isn't it? You knew about the path between you and Obina. Chijoke's face twisted with guilt and fear. Amara, I didn't want this. I didn't want you to suffer. Amara's heart was pounding in her chest. She had him now. Then you know what we have to do, she whispered, her voice barely audible. We have to undo it. We have to finish what we started, or I'm going to die. Chijoke shook his head violently. No, I can't do that again. You have to. And my voice rose in desperation. If we don't, the spirits will take me. I've already seen them. They are coming for me, Chijoke. Please. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached out to him, her hands trembling. She didn't know how much longer she could endure the sleepless night. The ghostly vision, the cold hand pulling her into the abyss. Chijoke was silent for a long moment, then slowly he nodded. All right, he whispered, his voice broken, but only to save you. As he stood there, surrounded by the gravestone and the memories of the dead, Amara felt the weight of what was about to happen. They were about to repeat the deed that had caused her in the first place. It felt wrong. Every part of her screamed against it. But she had no other choice. It was a matter of life and death. Chijoke leaned in, kissed her hesitantly. The chill in the air deepened, and Amara could feel the presence of the spirit all around her. As they kissed, the world seemed to shift, the darkness closing in, and the air grew colder still. Chijoke's movements became more urgent, and soon they were lost in the arts, just as they had been before. When it was over, Amara stood up, her leg weak and trembling. She looked down at the grave they had once again desecrated, the grave of Az. But something was different this time. She didn't feel the same dread that had weighed on her before. The air felt lighter, and for the first time in weeks she felt free. Chijoke stood beside her, looking just as shaken. Is it over? He asked quietly, his voice trembling. Amara nodded. I think so. They left the cemetery in silence, the weight of what they had done hanging over them. But Amara felt lighter. She no longer felt the cold hands of the spirit pulling her into the darkness. She no longer saw the ghostly faces in her dreams. That night, Amara slept peacefully for the first time in months. The spirits were gone, and she was free. As for Chijoke, he disappeared from the village shortly after. No one ever heard from him again, and rumors began to spread that he had left the country. Amara didn't care. She was alive, and that was all that mattered. The old woman's words echoed in her mind. The curse is lifted, but some bond cannot be broken. And though Amara had saved her life, she knew deep down that something would always tie her to the cemetery, to Chijoke, and to the path that had nearly cost her everything.